What if the reason you're overwhelmed isn't because your life got harder, but because life is just too big to grasp? Welcome back, mere mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals podcast. I have an interesting one for you today, something fun that I've been wanting to do, which is in essence, again, coming off the back of philosophy. You know, here that at the Mere Mortals, we do like to talk a lot about philosophy and effective philosophy. Now, a particular trend that I've been going down the path on is a little 1%er of things that get better on a day-to-day basis is just learning of new things. And just recently, I actually came across this concept called Hyperobjects, and it was by, in 2010, some philosopher named Timothy Morton. So he actually introduced this particular concept of hyperobjects. Now, what are they? They're entities so vast in the temporal span, spatial scale, or inherent complexity that they defy conventional comprehension. They exist beyond our cognitive grasp, permitting perception only in fragments, never in their entirety. And I stopped, I kind of like thought about it. I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool idea. I've never really heard of this hyperobject or objectivity before. And I went like, okay, cool. Now, a separate aspect of what I've been trying to do as well on the Mere Mortals, and something I'm going to be doing over the next 12 months, is putting out really high signal, at least what that means to me, as opposed to it being noise, just well thought out, uniquely from me, not, AI garbage that's just spat out about, hey, here's a summary of this or what to do with that. It's trying to pull together a concept, some sort of reasoning, good reasoning, not AI reasoning, into what something might mean, where we actually apply it. And when I saw the thing about a hyperobject, right, this complex thing, I actually started just to think about it, ruminated over the day, and I went, you know what? That's actually a piece I would want to kind of compare to just life. Because, so this particular quote from Alex Hormozi, let me just see if I can actually find that. I've got it here. He sort of says, if you can be in a bad mood for no reason, you might as well be in a good mood for no reason as well, right? And so part of that quote is what kind of got me thinking about this. So I got a couple of notes here, right, about it for hyperobjects. So it was sort of like, think of the internet, capitalism, global economy, right? These are all things that confront us with questions of scale, responsibility, kind of illuminating for us the limitations of our individual perceptions. So when we pause and we think about it, that's what I was thinking about it, is what's the biggest one itself? Life, right? There's just so much complexity, no matter what. Lots of fleeting moments, lots of information, whether it's, day to day, second to second, whatever. You've got visual inputs, you've got audio inputs, you've got the feels, you've got people having conversations, all this sort of stuff. And that was kind of like the biggest hyperobject itself, right, that I could potentially think of. And the way that I've written down here is, within those boundless complexities lies that potential for serenity. So like a calm mind. And it was this kind of connection that I was trying to formulate around, the idea of a hyperobject is this thing, and we just talked about it, internet or something else. And I kind of went, well, the biggest one is probably life. But this other concept of, if you can be in a bad mood for whatever reason, couldn't you just be in a good mood? In a similar application, I was trying to extend it around, well, if everything's really too complex to think about, like a hyperobject, is it, too much of a stretch to go, well, if you want to be in a calm mind all the time, couldn't you just kind of think to yourself or think about it in this more abstractual way of, well, everything's too complex anyways, might as well have a calm mind. So why a calm mind? So there's kind of the other intersection piece that comes into it, is this idea around, so the hyperobjects, we'll park that aside, a calm mind. For me personally, one of the biggest things that I've seen over the last couple of years and into my monthly goals, you can go back to the monthly goals and see that I've been talking about this in my relationship area of work. It's around being anti-fragile, of having a calm mind, of being able to perform, act, be in the world as I would in a calm way. Many years ago when I was younger, maybe this, relates as well to a lot of other people, I was emotionally driven. And look, it's not bad to be emotionally driven, but I was emotionally overridden or driven by whatever emotion I was feeling at the time, be it good and bad. I was privy to, something happening in my life, again, whether good or bad, and being able to persuade how I should be actually performing, acting, feeling in all these various ways. At least how I see it in this part is, to have a calm mind is just to me to act in the world you can never be independent of the world around you or the emotions, but at least in a very controlled way, in a measured way. Said in another way, if I'm feeling in a shitty mood and my daughter comes over and wants to talk to me, I don't have to kind of extrapolate that shitty mood and apply it everywhere. I can have this sort of calm mind, even Zen sort of mind, in further conversations, and be able to park that emotion, whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm interacting, and then going to the next one as me, as my true self, as opposed to a self that is dominated by something else that's occurring across my life. So those are the two big pieces, right? So the concept that I proceeded with here is achieving calmness is not the mere absence of disturbance, but a conscious decision made precisely when life is most tumultuous. During moments of fatigue, amidst the cries of a sleepless child, because I definitely know that, under the strain of looming obligations, calmness transforms from a mere virtue into an existential necessity. The world does not simplify itself in these moments. It remains inexorably, say that quickly, hyperobjective. A complex tapestry, too intricate to unravel completely. The critical difference lies not in external conditions, but in our internal response. Perhaps, folks, therein lies the essence of tranquility. Comprehending hyperobjectivity, not emotionally, but rationally, accepting the complexity, chaos, and serenity coexist perpetually within the same universal fabric. A mind at peace, a mind disturbed, or even a mind delicate and fragile all exist within the same hyperobjective world. Stimuli and external forces remain indifferent to our internal states. The distinction is our choice, our acceptance. Whether content on a tranquil shore or beleaguered by exhaustion, reality's fundamental nature remains unchanged. It is merely our vantage point or our chosen lens that shifts. So, again, going back to that particular quote from Mr. Hormozi, right? If you're going to be in a bad mood for no reason, you might as well be in a good mood. Well, if life's relentlessly complex, and I'm saying it's, the hyper-objective environment that we basically live in. So, Timothy, if we're going to apply it to those sort of things, internet and climate change, I'm basically applying it to life, given how much complexities that exist there. It kind of remains constant, right? That environment is fairly constant. Even if you think on a particular good day or a bad day, or something's going well, or you're sitting by the beach, or you're doing your work, it's constant. It's a very hyper-objective life, depending on just the viewpoint that you take. Then based on our perception, our response should be equal in being able to choose calmness versus being able to choose, being angry at the world or frustrated at what the events that have occurred in front of you, etc. So for my thought was the pursuit of a calm mind is neither trivial nor simplistic. So it's a stance, a deliberate act of defiance against incomprehensible vastness. It's accepting the nature of hyperobjects, and in doing so discovering freedom, the profound liberation of knowing that clarity does not require completeness and tranquility need not demand total understanding. And in a single sentence, in embracing this truth, perhaps I can live more thoughtfully, more calmly, and ultimately more profoundly. So a calm mind is the conscious acceptance of life's inherent complexity and our inability to fully grasp it. So I'll say that again. Calm mind, conscious acceptance of life's inherent complexity and our inability to fully grasp it. It is in the fact that we cannot grasp the fullness, the complexity, and kind of in the knowledge or the understanding or the openness, the freedom, the release to go, man, it doesn't matter that in everyday situation, I think this bad thing has happened or that good thing has happened. Materially, really rationally thinking about it, it's always complex. Everything's going on here. I got multiple lights going on. I got pings going. I got some messages coming through. A phone call came before. I'm reading through something. I'm thinking through my mind. There's this complexity about what I've got to do, like later tonight. And is that going to allow me to, when it comes to it, if something just happened prior to, and I may be frustrated going into it, the choice, and I guess knowing to the point that it is so complex, at that point I kind of go, if I can just lean into that idea that it is complex and it's always going to be, and shifting the mindset of, okay, well, this thing just frustrated me. However, had it been in a different viewpoint, or had I focused on something completely different, maybe I would be in a state of calm. And so because of that, I might as well put myself into a calm state, because it could have just been that as well. I don't want to guys deeper or further into this particular idea, into more philosophical, because I want to make it effective, right? So the effective piece of this is, if you want to have a calm mind, you can always have a calm mind. That can always occur. It's easier said than done in a lot of instances, but it is easy. It is doable. It is not a case of, oh, you cannot do that. To the quote there from Alex, if you can be in a bad mood, you might as well be in a good mood. It's, you can be in a, you can be in a terrible state of mind, but you can be in a calm mind. That's your choice. And at least for me, I kind of tagged it to, well, if I realize rationally that the world, the universe, life in general is hyperobjective, it is complex, very complex, then it's always going to be so. And I should also be able to have my choice of state of mind, because at any time I'm able to view it from different viewpoints and change that. Again, much easier said than done. Practically in my life, I have become a lot more zen, if you like, or a lot more calmer in my approaches. I take specific ways to do that in the notes that I take for my daily journal. In the mornings, I might write down some specific details to make sure I remember or help me understand that in the day coming, or to reflect back on perhaps a day afterwards on, how could I be better on that? Maybe how could I have taken a calmer? How could I look at it more broadly? Perhaps it's a specific point of view that I can take. So again, when I'm coming at things from me perspective and getting mad or angry or sad, can I take other points of view? And I think the broader points of view that you get, the more universal that you get, the more hyper objective that becomes, because there's just so many complexities and things that happen. You start to kind of neutralize that negative to positive variances, and you get to more of a, what I would consider calm mind, calm practices, being able to then approach the whatever it is that you're doing with a more neutral, calm mind. So that was the first piece that I kind of just thought about when I read this thing from Timothy about hyperobjects. And you would have seen, so if you've listened all the way to here, what I've read in a couple of those items, it was basically what I ended up doing. So I'll just give you that process of how I'm trying to create a little bit more of a high signal. I had this particular idea, or at least I wanted to connect the hyperobject idea to this calm mind thing that I've always sort of been chasing or talking about. Kind of combined it. I put it together in sort of my own personal notes, grabbed that, it was a big chunk of text, threw it into some AI tools. For me, OpenAI's ChatGPT, and just wanted to hey, can you just summarize this and make it a little bit cleaner? Which, as you heard some of the language, it's got a little bit more, flowery type of language than maybe I would particularly do. But it helps me just, when I reflect on it at a later date, it kind of reads to me at least like a more well-written piece, as opposed to just the random ramblings that I might have on a day-to-day. So, just a little thing, insight into the process and behind the scenes as well, for those who at all wonder about stuff like that. What did you think? Me and Morton Lights, have you heard about hyperobjects before? Have you thought about this combination of, the world's complexity versus the calm mind and bringing it together? I'm trying to create more informational pieces that I think I at least find really interesting, or I'm finding more novel than what you probably hear from me. If it is interesting, let me know. I'll obviously try and create some more of these. I'll continue to do these just because I find them quite fun. Maybe I'll become a little bit more pointed at particular ideas or challenging things. Again, more around just what I find interesting. What I find, I want it to be really high signal items that I can pull out, effective things to actually do, as opposed to just noise, right? Just information for information's sake. So I will leave it there. Me and Morton Lights, I hope you are well wherever you are in the world. And do remember, if you do want to chase that calm mind, that Zen state point of view, go broader, realize that the complexity of the world is just that, very complex. And so if you can be in a frustrated mood, you might as well be in a good mood, in a calm mind, in a Zen state. Immortal Lights, 1, out.